It is a great honor to be invited to speak at the ESG Global Leaders Summit. I'm grateful to Sina Finance for thinking of me. I would like to share with you on this occasion some thoughts about neglected forces acting on the world economy and some themes of mine that appear in my last two books, Mass Flourishing, 2013, and Dynamism, 2020. Significant losses of some key humanist values over the past several decades are having serious consequences in much of the world. One of these losses is a weakening of any sense of community, and in particular, any sense of the economy as a kind of national project to which every participant contributes. Political leaders now cater to interest groups and give little thought to the efficiency and the dynamism of the economy. Today, in America and Europe, many leaders heed ultra-right factions that, having no concern for the welfare of the community, oppose the lockdowns and the face masks needed to combat the virus. There also appears in some countries to have been a broad loss of altruism, the respect for other persons. In other times, there was a willingness to make sacrifices for others, as in World War II. In the present time, when lawmakers talk of measures to alleviate hunger and homelessness arising from job losses, there is a resistance from a large part of the population, mostly high-income earners, who oppose any increase of their tax rates. In the West, we have seen over several decades a continuation of the grotesque gap between the wages paid to the lowest earners, the least advantaged workers, and, say, the incomes of average people. This has been all the more painful as a result of the near stagnation of wages that set in around 1970 and reappeared after the internet revolution. There appears now to be less interest in general poverty than there was some decades ago. The concept of economic justice set out by John Rawls, taxing and subsidizing to pull up the wages of the lowest paid, gained ground in the 70s. But since then, the moral value called fairness has disappeared. This is evidence of serious sickness in Western society. For some time, there was less unfairness toward women than there was in the past. But now we are witnessing in the present crisis many companies focusing their job separations on female employees, a spectacle reminiscent of the dismissal of women in America's Great Depression. Thus, women are losing much of the ground they had gained. The performance of the economy will suffer as a consequence. Preservation of the earth was another value of ours. Now the oceans have been turned into garbage dumps. Yet the deterioration of the climate and the failure of the world to join in joint action to stop climate change before it becomes irreversible to a large degree, has put that value in doubt. Perhaps nothing is sacred. Finally, there is a phenomenon that has gone unnoticed by most observers and thinkers. There has been, most strikingly over the past 2 decades, though already in the 70s and 80s, a huge fall of dynamism in most or all of the nations that had exhibited high dynamism in previous times. In America, in Britain, in Germany, and France, most notably. This loss is costing the world much of the indigenous innovation that it had for a century, from 1870 to 1970. The innovation that comes from the new ideas of people, mostly ordinary people, as well as gifted people, at work, people at work in businesses around the economy. The resulting decline of innovation in the West has been having serious consequences, of course. Slower growth is just one of them. People also want to see the material terms at which they work on an upward trend. Yet most low-income and middle-income earners have not had a sense of doing better for decades. And that is not all. People also want to succeed at something. Lives of imagining and creating bring meaning to work. Yet such lives are fewer now than they were in the 50s and the 60s. Most working people report far less job satisfaction than the previous generation did. The causes of this may lie in values. It may be that the widespread desire people came to have to use their imagination and creativity, which first rose up with the values born in the Renaissance and succeeding centuries, with Pico della Mirandola, Martin Luther, David Hume, Emerson, and which brought to Europe and America a long era of economic progress and what I call mass flourishing, has suffered a serious decline among many nations and among many Americans in particular and Europeans. In contrast, the Chinese continue to demonstrate imagination, enthusiasm, and a desire to succeed. They continue to show the right stuff. We have to find our way out of this morass. Some vision on our part is going to be needed. Yet, reviving these values where they have been lost will be hard. We may have to consider new ideas to go forward. We can offset or mitigate the situation by taking a range of measures. We can break up monopolies. We can open markets to more widely to innovators. We can open up banks to new startups, open international trade wider. We can reestablish international student exchanges. And very important, open the door more widely to women in business, academia, and government. I believe the world economy will continue to pay a high price if it does not meet the need to regain the spirit of imagination, exploration, and self-expression that for a century or more, inspired widespread indigenous innovating and thus brought about mass flourishing.